Hello guys, it's Revolution. So on this video we're going to do a what if. What if Goku landed on planet Krypton, the planet that Superman was originally from, otherwise known as Kal-el. Now obviously the alarm bells are ringing because Krypton is from the DC verse and it wasn't in the Dragon Ball verse or Universe 7 that is in the Dragon Ball multiverse. But what if Krypton was in Universe 7 along with Earth, Planet Vegeta, Planet Namek? And what if Goku, rather than arriving on Earth as intended, landed on Planet Krypton, the birthplace of Superman himself? So of course, suspend your disbelief, this is just a bit of fun. Anyone that spoke to me knows how much I enjoy both the Dragon Ball and DC verse, two of my favourite verses in fiction. I wanted to do a little collaboration between the two, other than just verse battles. So let's go. But before I begin, if you're not subscribed to Revolution, you're either new to this channel or you've not clicked that subscribe button yet, please do smash that subscribe button and the bell button next to it, turning all notifications on to be notified when I release new content. And if you're on any of the socials, Instagram, Twitter or Facebook, do come follow me on there. All the links are down in the information section and the pinned comment. Keep lending the die shanking your energy by smashing that like button if you enjoy these videos. So we'll be sticking mostly to post-crisis Superman versions of Krypton. Like I said, suspend your disbelief, so we'll borrow from older versions of Krypton if we have to, but I'll try to stick to post-crisis versions. Of course, the story begins on Planet Vegeta when Frieza, the evil Lord Emperor Frieza, decides to terminate the Saiyans. In terms of the storyline, the continuity here, all the events are the same as what played out in Dragon Ball Minus, as well as what played out in the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie, in terms of what led up to the destruction of Planet Vegeta at the hands of the evil Lord Frieza. Prince Vegeta is off-world working alongside Nappa and Raditz. Broly has been exiled to a distant planet called Planet Vampa, and his father Paragus is chased after him, and Bardock, fearing what Frieza may do to the planet, decides to send Goku to a distant planet in order for him to escape, and he decides to send him to planet Earth. Saiyan fathers are known for not particularly caring about their children, but Bardock shows a different trait here. He gets his son Kakarot, puts him in a pod the night before the destruction of Planet Vegeta, and sends him hurtling through space towards planet Earth. A short while later, as Bardock feared, Frieza would send a planet-destroying ki blast hurtling towards Planet Vegeta, which would ultimately wipe Planet Vegeta from the face of the universe. But Bardock made a critical mistake. Whilst in panic mode, trying to get Goku in a space pod that he'd stolen to send towards Earth, he had accidentally input into the space pod the wrong coordinates, which ultimately sent Goku hurtling towards a different planet. Now this planet also happens to reside in the Northern Galaxy. It's under the jurisdiction of the Cardinal Kai, the North Kai, King Kai. And this planet also happens to only be 27.1 light years away from planet Earth. Whilst that seems like a lot, in relative to the space of the universe, it really isn't a lot. Considering Bardock was working under pressure, no wonder he got it wrong, right? His son Kakarot would ultimately land on a planet called Krypton. Planet Krypton is in a red star system, and had Bardock had Neil deGrasse Tyson at hand like Superman did in this particular comic, would have known that it was in the constellation Corvus in the southern sky, 27.1 light years from Earth. Bardock might have got the wrong planet, but at least he got the right galactic quadrant and even the right galaxy. Now Goku would ultimately land on planet Krypton for 7 years before it self-destructed, before it imploded. And upon his spacepod landing on planet Krypton, he was fortunate enough to be found by Jor-el. Now whilst Krypton is a highly technologically advanced planet, far beyond that of what Earth is capable of, and even far beyond that of what Planet Vegeta had at their disposal, and even the Frieza Force. Whilst they were so technologically superior to these other races, the zeitgeist of their civilization had been in decadence for thousands of years, undergoing multiple wars including the Clone Wars that led to the decay of the Kryptonian civilization. During these wars, the Kryptonian science was ultimately turned into warfare, and several super weapons were created, including the Eradicator, which ultimately rendered Kryptonian life forms so that they would instantly die if they left Krypton. Whilst that ultimately imprisoned Kryptonians on planet Krypton. It was ultimately a death sentence, considering the Destroyer, another superpowered weapon created by the science of Kryptonians, was ultimately a giant nuclear gun. It projected massive streams of nuclear energy into the core of Krypton and ultimately caused a chain reaction, which would ultimately cause Krypton's core to explode almost immediately. Fortunately, this weapon was stopped by somebody called Van-El, an ancestor of Jor-el, the father of Kal-el. However, Jor-el himself would eventually discover the reaction had only been slowed, not stopped. So eventually, planet Krypton would ultimately self-implode due to what the Destroyer did to it in the past. So this infant Saiyan named Kakarot had gone from one planet that had literally just been destroyed by a planet-destroying Emperor to a planet that was ultimately on the brink of destruction. Anyway, in Jor-el, he managed to find a rebellious, caring Kryptonian, a far cry from the rest of the Kryptonian civilization, which had ultimately become cold towards one another. Surely the Kryptonians would be fine, right? After all, they're superpowered beings, just like Superman himself. Not quite, because planet Krypton orbits a red dwarf star. Red stars ultimately prohibit the manifestation of the superpowers a Kryptonian would get from the sun per se, a yellow star. However, planet Krypton has a much denser core than planet Earth, and thus having a greater gravitational pull, 20% greater and heavier than planet Earth's gravity. Of course, much weaker than planet Vegeta's 10 times gravity, but Goku would ultimately grow up on a planet that would have a greater gravitational pull than Earth, a greater gravitational pull than the planet he would train on in the real continuity. This would greatly impact on Goku's strength growing up. So whilst Kryptonians might not necessarily have the superpowers they get from absorbing the solar rays of a yellow star, they ultimately do live on a planet with heavier gravity than Earth, so they aren't much stronger than what we are as humans, but they are not superpowered beings and thus won't be able to survive the explosion of their planet or fly off into space. Due to being part of the Rao planetary system, once again having a red dwarf star. But as I mentioned before, they are a highly sophisticated, intelligent race. They are genetically programmed to fit into certain guilds, including guilds such as the Science Guild, the Artist Guild, the Religious Guild, the Labour Guild, and even the Military Guild. At the beginning of Dragon Ball, as a child, Goku is recorded as having a power of 10. Who knows exactly what power level he had as an infant, but he would have been a bit of a problem for Jor-el in terms of power, though I do believe Jor-el may have been able to temper him and calm him down. After all, Jor-el was of the Science Guild, and his wife, Laura Van, was of the Kryptonian Thinker Guild. So there's every reason to believe that the two of them together could come up with methods to find a way to calm Goku down. Of course, Goku being a Saiyan and the Saiyans being a warrior race, Goku would show these traits, and Jor-el and Laura knew instantly that he would perfectly fit the Kryptonian Military Guild. But the leader of the military was General Zod, who is already showing maniacal tendencies and is plotting a rebellion against the Law's Council. So Jor-el knew that he would have to do everything he could to keep Goku, who just seemed to be getting stronger and stronger, from the clutches of Zod. But this is another important point. If Goku arrived on planet Krypton, his name would not be Goku. Of course, for the sake of this video, I'll often call him Goku, but Jor-el will give him a Kryptonian name based on the House of El and call him Kal-el. Goku would retain his Saiyan armor, but he would have the sigil of the House of El emblazoned onto his Saiyan armor. Whilst Goku was certainly showing aggressive traits for the first few years of his life on Krypton, eventually the calmer nature of this planet and the civilization there would ultimately start to have an effect on Goku. Whilst Krypton has had its fair share of wars and is still suffering from those wars, it is certainly a kinder environment of that of planet Vegeta, and this would consequentially affect Goku's level of S cells, as well as the affection shown to him by Jor-el and Laura whilst raising him. Unfortunately, a great catastrophe would happen when Goku would undergo one of his first Saiyan transformations. Upon seeing the full moon of Koron, Goku would ultimately transform into an Uzaru, multiplying his power tenfold. Now, Goku was already getting quite strong due to the strong gravity on Krypton. Goku would likely be a lot stronger than the first time he turned Uzaru in the real continuity. Goku would go on a rampage, not knowing how to control his Uzaru form, destroying everything in his path. Eventually, he would come down from the Uzaru state, but the tail of the giant monster would ultimately become legend, and this got the attention of General Zod, wanting a weapon for his cause. General Zod would go on the lookout for this monster and hope to acquire him. A year would pass and General Zod would eventually identify that this boy that was residing with his former friends Jor-el and Laura, who was showing powers and abilities far beyond that Kryptonians on planet Krypton were capable of, was something to do with this legend, and also wanted his powers for his military force. Showing a natural affinity for fighting, Jor-el also got him involved in learning the Kryptonian martial arts, Tor-Kazum Bo and Tor-Kazum Rao. By the age of 5, Goku would have mastered the art of Kyrpton. His Saiyan traits for fighting would allow him to surpass any Kryptonian martial artist on that planet at that time, but that would ultimately rouse suspicion. General Zod would eventually go on to abduct and enslave Goku by capturing him and using a device similar to the device that Paragus used to control Broly on planet Vampire in the original continuity. Jor-el and Laura, unable to oppose this due to the fact that they've been raising a foreign alien species on their planet without license from their council, had to accept the hand they'd been dealt. At this particular time, Laura would become pregnant through natural means, once again defying the order of the Council of Krypton. General Zod would then go on a rebellion against the council itself, and with this powerful new ally in Kal-el or Goku, General Zod quickly gained the advantage. There was simply only one thing against the might of General Zod and his military and his rebellion, and the power of this Saiyan youth who was now chronologically in his teens. They would have to entrap General Zod and Goku in the Phantom Zone, and they succeeded. However, whilst Goku was under control by General Zod, he never forgot the love and kindness shown to him by Jor-el and Laura, as well as the fact that growing up on planet Krypton had certainly affected his Saiyan S-cells for the better. However, he would eventually become entrapped and powerless in the Phantom Zone. A short while later, planet Krypton's core would become too unstable, and Jor-el, after having a newborn baby in Kal-el, would eventually decide to send Kal-el off to a distant planet. Why was Kal-el allowed to leave the planet when the rest of the Kryptonians weren't? This was because he was born by natural means, which meant he wasn't affected by the Eradicator's DNA altering effects. Thus, he was allowed to escape planet Krypton, and eventually, as he left Krypton, Krypton would go boom. Kal-el would arrive on Earth. Remember, this is not the Earth in DC, this is the Earth in Dragon Ball. Kal-el would arrive on a farm and would eventually be took into a home. This time though, unlike Goku in the real story, it wouldn't be under Grandpa Gohan. A different character from the Dragon Ball verse would find him, and his name would be Farmer with Shotgun. Kal-el would be raised by a farm-owning family on planet Earth, a planet orbiting a yellow star, which would ultimately manifest the Kryptonians' superpowers. Whilst not undergoing every story that Goku underwent during the original Dragon Ball, he would eventually come face to face with Piccolo without Goku's interference as it happened in the original manga. King Piccolo would rise to power and he would rule with tyranny. Even the Red Ribbon Army would join Piccolo's cause. Kal-el would ultimately grow up in a world of tyranny, but eventually, upon manifesting his own powers, he would stand up against this tyrant. This battle was simply inevitable. Piccolo wanted to conquer the world, whereas the only superpower being that could oppose him was this young Kal-el, who hadn't fully manifested all of his Kryptonian powers yet. But he would eventually save the Earth after finding the Fortress of Solitude, learning about his ancestry, gaining his Kryptonian suit of armor. Not only would he manifest his powers, but he would enhance them, and training with Kami, the god of Earth. Not only would he have his Kryptonian superpowers, but Kami and Mr. Popo would ultimately teach him how to wield ki attacks. After defeating Piccolo, a while after, he would have to take on an even more powerful foe, this time a Saiyan. However, it wasn't going to be Kakarot, Goku. It would be his older brother, Raditz. However, teaming up with Piccolo, Kal-el and Piccolo would defeat this Saiyan and send him packing. Piccolo wanted to kill Raditz, but Kal-el, sticking to his values, insisted on not killing Raditz. Raditz would leave Earth, promising to come back with even more powerful Saiyans. Unfortunately, shortly after this was when something even more crazy happened. A huge starship would descend on planet Earth called the Black Zero, and on board this ship would be General Zod and his enslaved Saiyan weapon, Goku. Due to the destruction of Krypton, the barrier from the Phantom Zone to the physical universe weakened, and General Zod would use the Saiyan's power to escape the Phantom Zone in its weakened state. Finding Krypton completely obliterated, he would set out on his starship, the Black Zero, to find any surviving Kryptonians. Upon Kal-el initiating the Phantom Zone, this gave out the signal to the starship, and ultimately General Zod set his path towards Earth. Goku, who was still enslaved by the device around his neck, he would set Goku upon Kal-el to fight him, while Zod continued manifesting his own Kryptonian powers from the Yellow Star. But during this fight, Kal-el would come to realise that the device around Goku's neck was what was ultimately enslaving him. During the fight, Kal-el managed to rip this device off from around Goku's neck. Goku, then realising that he no longer had to follow Zod's orders, teamed up with Kal-el to fight against General Zod. General Zod, manifesting his Kryptonian powers due to the Yellow Star, aided by his military experience and background, would take on the Saiyan and the Kryptonian. General Zod's experience would be telling and gain an advantage, but Goku would eventually come up with a strategy. He eventually got General Zod in a full Nelson and told Kal-el to shoot his heat vision right through Zod's heart. Unfortunately, Kal-el couldn't bring himself to do this, but just as Goku was losing his grip on General Zod, something pierced through not just General Zod's heart, but Goku's heart as well, and that was the special beam cannon. Piccolo got the job done. Goku died in this instance. Fortunately for Goku, Kal-el knew the god of Earth, Kami, and Kal-el would tell Kami of Goku's exploits. This led Kami to allow Goku to go to the King Kai's planet, and Goku would get to train with the North Kai. After all, Raditz was returning along with two other Saiyans, Nappa and the Prince of all Saiyans, Vegeta. Goku would train with King Kai, and Kal-el would go in search of the Dragon Balls to wish Goku back in preparation for the Saiyans. Anyway guys, that's all for this What If. That's what would happen if Goku landed on planet Krypton. Crazy I know, but I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to hear more of these stories of Kal-el and Kal-el, do smash a like on the video. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Until next time, Ad Astra.